and the executive producer of the X Conference. Welcome, everyone. Trice Sheraton speaking, host of A Global Focus. This evening's guest is Stephen Bassett. A Global Focus airs live on the Paranormal Radio Network with its anchor station, UPRN 105.7 FM, New Orleans. There are several listening venues, including the latest, the PTVN and PRN networks. And thanks, Joe Montaldo, owner of the Paranormal Radio Network, for making these broadcasts possible. Tonight's program's guest, Steve Bassett, is a leading advocate for ending the 64-year government-imposed truth embargo regarding extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race. Steve is the executive director of the Paradigm Research Group and the Political Action Committee XPAC and the executive producer of the X Conference. Steve's work has been extensively covered by national and international media. Over the past 3 years, he's spoken to audiences all over the globe about the implications of formal disclosure. And Steve, tonight we'll be discussing the latest developments, including the status of the disclosure petition. Steve, thanks so for joining us.
Happy to be with you, Patrice.
Now, Steve, am I correct? Your disclosure petition right now has reached the 8,492 figure. That's outstanding. And it was just inaugurated, the disclosure petition initiative, September 22nd, correct?
The White House project. Right?
No, I meant your sponsorship, your PRG sponsorship of this petition, September 22nd, correct?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the petition went active on the 22nd of September.
And so that means by October 22nd, you may very well have about 25,000 signatories. I hope you do.
Well, it's important. Now, your listeners may not know what's happening here. Let's bring them up to speed.
Yes, please.
In late October, the White House, as part of revisiting their open government, transparent open government ideas that they had put forward in a campaign, announced that they were going to allow citizens and organizations to put a petition on the White House to register them, and the whitehouse.gov website. They announced it about 30 days ahead of time so people would have time to get their petitions together and promote them, because the White House is not going to promote them. It's up to the petitioner. And, of course, got on that right away, got a website up called disclosurepetition.info, where the key information is, and the wording for the petition, which I'll give you in a second. And did some pre-promotion. So when the We the People petition section went active on the whitehouse.gov website on the 22nd of September, the petition was one of the, I think, that were up. The rules for this program are as follows. The petition must have 140 signatures before they publish it on the site. And once it's published, it has 30 days to achieve 5,000 signatures, in which case it will receive a formal response from the Obama administration after being reviewed by the appropriate staff. Last Monday, that threshold was increased to 25,000, but it's not retroactive. So the disclosure petition will be reviewed by the Obama administration. Other things that are notable are the fact that the signatures are not exclusive to the United States. Anyone can sign this petition anywhere in the world. There is a zip code field, but it's optional. And so signatures are coming in from all nations. And secondly, they made a key decision to only publish the first name and last initial of the signatories, giving it a little less exposure to those that sign. I would have preferred they had both first and last name. So this is an enormous opportunity, great opportunity for people who care about this issue to put their name behind it and make a statement. There is no limit to the number of signatures that could be on this petition. There are 167 petitions up at this point, and the disclosure petition is, I think, around 24th. Now, what is this petition? It reads exactly as follows, and of course you can find this at disclosurepetition.info. We, the undersigned, strongly urge the President of the United States to formally acknowledge an extraterrestrial presence engaging the human race and immediately release into the public domain all files within government agencies and military services relevant to this phenomenon. That's about as simple as it can get. It's unambiguous. Anyone who thinks there is no ET presence here would not want to sign that petition. Can't imagine. But anyone who thinks there is or believes there is, consider signing it and making a statement to the administration. But it's bigger than that because the White House website gets tens of millions of visits a month. And anyone that visits can go and see these petitions, whether they sign or not. And so this petition is getting exposed. This includes the members of the military intelligence community, people working in black op programs. Anybody with a computer can go and see this. And so this concept, this issue, is getting an enormous amount of exposure. It costs nothing to sign it. It takes a few minutes. You have to register with your email address. They then send you back a password. Most people understand how this works. You use that password to sign in, and then you can sign any of the petitions on the website that you want to support. That's what's happening right now.
Steve, thank you for that brief recap. I was going to mention that as well, and also the continually escalating growth in the number of signers. Now, what is the status of this petition going viral? It sounds to me as though it truly has. Any updates on that, Steve?
Hasn't gone viral yet. The response from the administration is important, and it'll be interesting to see what they say and which part of the administration responds. But that is not really the key goal that PRG has for this. The key goal is a large number of signatures. That to make as strong a statement as possible. And right now, the signature with the most petitions is around 60,000. And that is, not surprisingly, a petition to legalize marijuana and treat it like alcohol. There are, in fact, 6 marijuana or drug war petitions up there with a total of about 100,000 signatures. So that's the most signatures that he's gotten. But the fact is, the administration is not heavily promoting this. They have not said anything about it. He could have said something in the press conference yesterday. There have been articles about it in the media. If you Google White House petition, you can see them. But they're not pushing it too hard. In order to get the signatures, people have got to learn about this. So what you want to do is, what we're trying to do, is to get the link to go viral. Now, the link currently is at disclosurepetition.info. It's at the paradigmresearchgroup.org. If you Google disclosure petition, you get plenty of sites that have this link. But it's a short link. It's very easy. It's case sensitive. It is lowercase wh.gov/G uppercase KC. In other words, only 2 uppercase letters, KC. wh.gov/G uppercase KC. This is a short link to the petition. Now, someone could go to whitehouse.gov, go to the We the People section, and find the petition registered. They don't need the special link. But it is that short link that we're trying to spread. Now, how are we doing that? Well, starting all the way back in August, and then certainly in September, Paradigm Research Group has put out 2 international press releases, has repeatedly posted information about this process to several hundred Facebook groups, plus its own 6 Facebook pages. It is using Twitter. It's using YouTube. There are now 12 YouTube videos, which you can easily find, about the disclosure petition, as well as there's been some media coverage, Forbes magazine, Daily Mail in the UK. I have done an interview with Wall Street Journal, waiting for that. So we're hoping that enough people will use Facebook, MySpace, Twitter, YouTube, the social media, websites, web links, bulletin boards, email lists, to spread this link. In other words, don't just sign the petition, share the link with 100 of your closest friends. You'd be surprised how many friends you have who actually believe this ET issue is real and might very well sign that petition, though they have never spoken about it to you. So if the link goes viral, almost anything is possible. Now, Patrice, let me give your listeners an exact understanding of what viral means. Virality on the Internet is kind of like chain reaction in nuclear physics. You hit a critical mass and it explodes. This happens on the Internet all the time. It's a mystery as to what goes viral and what doesn't. But the best way to see virality in action is YouTube. If your listeners were to go to YouTube and put just the letter A in the search box and then search on the letter A, they'll get several million YouTube videos. Then sort those by view count, right? And then the most viewed videos will come up, and there are several million. You will find that the most viewed video, I believe, on YouTube to date, I think is a Lady Gaga video, and it has 420 million views. There's also one at 200 and some million and so forth, 100 million. These links to these videos have gone mega viral. Now, if you were to put the acronym UFO into the YouTube search box, you will get about 45,000 videos on YouTube related to UFO issue. Sort those by view count, and you will discover that the top 90 UFO-related YouTube videos run between approximately 2 million and 36 million views, with a number of them at 15, 12, 11, 9, 8, 7, 6, and so forth. All of these basically have gone viral. Millions of views. Oddly enough, some of the top UFO videos that have been viewed are, in fact, very good hoaxes. But I can assure you that the people that went and spent a couple of minutes watching those didn't go there because they wanted to see a hoax. They're interested in the issue. They went there to see what's what, to see maybe it's real. Now, the question I have to your listeners, if 9 million people can spend 2 minutes watching a UFO video on YouTube, can 9 million people go and sign, if they knew about it, a petition on the White House website that takes about as long to do, and try to get the real truth about this from our governments ASAP? That is certainly possible if enough people share the link, and that is what's underway right now. We are trying to drive this link out on the net as far and wide as possible and see if it can hit a critical mass and go viral. And if it does, we have an international news story without question.
One wishes you the greatest success on this. You and the sponsoring organization, Paradigm Research Group. And, of course, as far as Paradigm Research Group is concerned, you are the executive director. Excellent work. Your initiatives are always, to me, of great importance, and to many, many people as well. Now, Steve, you were mentioning media coverage on this particular petition. You have Lee Spiegel. Is it Lee Spiegel? I'm assuming Lee Spiegel, who actually will be appearing. Spiegel, thank you. He will be appearing now at the next International UFO Conference in February 2012. He has an article out, quote, "We the People petition seeks truth of alien visits from Obama administration," as well as Alejandro Rojas's article on the Huffington Post. He has written one, quote, "Will White House come clean on extraterrestrial visitation," end quote. I think it's very exciting that the Huffington Post is covering these matters.
Alejandro Rojas and Lee Spiegel are writing great articles on the Huffington Post AOL website now, which is mainstream the news, without question. Lee, of course, goes back, oh Lord, many, many years. He was trying to get disclosure and trying to get this issue out back in the early 70s. So, yeah, they have done, I think it's been almost 3 articles in Huffington Post, plus we just had an article in the Daily Mail in the UK. So the media could take off here at any time. I've been talking off and on with the producers of The Daily Show and The Colbert Report for a number of months, and who knows, possibly one of these articles will trigger a spot there. I mean, if I could do a Daily Show, for instance, Lordy, I mean, it might generate 100,000 signatures. So we're just waiting for a media breakthrough here, and we're doing the best we can. There is one unknown about this that I haven't been able to resolve, and that is that it's not clear whether the White House will take the petitions down after 30 days. In other words, whatever signatures you got, they pull it down. I really don't want them to do that, and I've actually got a small petition, and I'm putting it out on my Facebook pages. It's an info petition asking the administration to extend the time that these petitions are on the website so they can properly reflect public interest. And as soon as that petition hits 140, it'll be published right there at the top. Because, look, regardless of what the threshold is, for response by the administration, there is a big difference between a petition that has 5,000 signatures and a petition that has 150,000 signatures. And so people need time to learn about this initiative. Most people don't even know about it yet. They have no idea that there is a first ever ongoing petition process being conducted by the administration on the White website. And when more people know that they're going to get really intense about this, which I think is why last Monday they did raise the threshold to 25,000 signatures, which I think was too high. They probably should have gone no higher than 15,000. So there is a golden opportunity here, Patrice. But it's not the only referendum out there. There are other petitions, and also there is the World Disclosure Day. Now, Paradigm Research Group launched an effort to get July the 8th recognized amongst the people, not as a holiday, but among the people as World Disclosure Day, a day to focus on this issue, disclosure, and what have you. We'll launch that on July the 1st. There is a website, worlddisclosureday.org, which is tracking the media coverage and what have you. But most importantly, at worlddisclosureday.org, you can endorse World Disclosure Day. You can endorse the concept. It's basically Earth Day, but for ETs and disclosure. And we have over 4,500 endorsements now. And these are being published with first and last name. City, state, city, province, country. They're coming in from around the world. So we would love to see 100,000 endorsements, of which I can attract some serious media attention. So I encourage your listeners to go to worlddisclosureday.org, use the simple email forms there. Takes a couple minutes tops, and register yourself and or an organization to endorse World Disclosure Day and build that up. So that's going to be ongoing. That's going to stay indefinitely. So we can continue to build this referendum presence on the net, and I can draw media to that and show them, look, these people are signing onto this. They're putting their names behind this, so you should be paying attention. So right now we've got worlddisclosureday.org, and we've got, of course, the disclosure petition on the White House website.
Thank you for that information, Steve. And, I just wanted to note here that when I believe this Alejandro Rojas's title to the article was "Will White House Come Clean on Extraterrestrial Visitation?" What he was referencing there, I believe, is the fact that your article, and I hope I'm not being presumptuous, your petition stresses that, quote, immediately release into the public domain all files from all agencies and military services relevant to this phenomenon, end quote.
Right.
Very bold. It certainly would be a wonderfully important development, a helpful development. Now, Alejandro, in his article, it's an excellent one, also mentions that Robert Salas had envisioned a petition which would ask the Obama administration to, quote, reveal the reality of the UFO phenomenon to the public and disclose information held by government agencies, end quote. And of course, they could be much more selective about which information they would disclose according to that formula. What do you think? It's important that all the files be released?
No, there's nothing wrong. The other petition, which is, it's created by a fellow by the name of Craig C., but it's referred to as Bob Salas' position. That petition is fine. The language is a little softer, but it's fine. And it has about 4,000 votes. It's going to clear the 5,000 threshold. And so 2 disclosure petitions is no problem, and it won't dilute the impact at all. And I signed it. I signed it without reservation. But so fine. But when you think of the disclosure petition, the reason it's so strongly worded is so that people can make as strong a statement as possible. We want disclosure and we want the files immediately. Now, but another way to think about it is a negotiating position. If you're going to negotiate, you need to have an initial position, right?
Leverage.
So if the government wants to come forward and say, all right, here's the thing, we really can't release we will acknowledge the extraterrestrial presence, but we can't release the files immediately. This is going to take some time. I told that, well, that's fine. I'm good with that. That's fine. Let's work with that. Or if they came forward and said, the government said that, look, we can't acknowledge the extraterrestrial presence, but we will release a lot of files, And I'll say, well, that's a good start. Then let's go with that. Fine. But at least we have a position to negotiate from. So do I expect that the government would release all the files if they were to disclose the ET presence right away? No. But do I have a problem with asking for them? No. So think of it that way. Disclosure is the key. Right? Look, the most important issue here is the acknowledgement. The United States government and the rest of the world governments are going to have to acknowledge the ET presence soon enough. Soon. The question is whether they'll do it soon enough, because there's a lot of bad things heading our way right now. And that is the key thing. And then how much information we learn, how many files are released, will be a matter to be resolved between the American people, with the probably American media firmly on their side, and the government. Interesting tug of war, and we'll watch it play out on our widescreen, high-definition televisions. But the petition is designed to make as strong a clear statement as possible. If you do not think there's an ET presence, you would not sign that petition. If you do, then I can imagine not signing that petition. And guess what? According to the polls, and there have been many in the last 15 years, Roper, Reuters, Time, CNN, and the international organization Ipsos, according to these polls, they consistently show that over 80% of the people in the industrialized world believe their governments are not telling the truth about this, and of approximately 50% in the industrialized world, this is a big, big number, 150 million in the United States, believe that the ET presence is in fact the explanation behind the UFO phenomena as stated in the Cometa report. Now, amazingly enough, Reuters hired Ipsos to do an international poll on this to try to represent the entire human race. They selected 32 or 36 countries and polled a large number of people on a very straightforward but somewhat severe question. Do you believe extraterrestrials are on the Earth now, living on the Earth, amongst them? 20% of the world's people said yes. The highest percentage was India at 45%. That's 1.4 billion. Had they asked a question less severe, such as, do you believe this UFO phenomena is extraterrestrial? Do you believe there's extraterrestrial craft? They probably would have gotten a higher number, maybe even something approaching the industrialized world, which would be in the 40 to 50% range. So that means that somewhere between 2 and 3 billion people on the planet today believe that there's ETs here. They're engaging us. That's a big number, and 150 million in the United States. Now, that's an anonymous poll. I mean, they're not putting their name or signature down on a website. It's anonymous. But it's still a very big number. So if enough people knew about this petition, about this White House initiative, how many signatures could we get? And I'm saying the number could be huge. This is the first opportunity I have seen where the world can put their name and signature behind this issue directly to the most powerful government in the world right now, maybe not next year, and do it for it costs nothing to do and takes a few minutes. We need to take advantage of these opportunities. You don't get many like this. And more importantly, if people do not sign up, if they don't sign these petitions, they don't participate, they're sending a message to the government, yeah, don't bother us. You know, we don't really care. We don't really have issues, or if we do, we're not going to get involved. Do whatever you want. You're doing such a fantastic job. Just keep doing what you're doing, right? And the government will say, okay, fine. We won't bother you anymore. We won't ask you what you think, right? So I really hope people will learn about this petition process at whitehouse.gov and get involved and take advantage of this. There's a lot of great issues up there, and once you register, you know what you want.
Yes, the registration is an easy process. I know you're one of the researchers in the room, Raven, thank you, has said that the petition has gone over the 8,000, or is at the 8,500 point. Thank you, Raven. Also, Steve, at this point, with the current political scenario of nationwide protests, do you think the disclosure movement can take advantage of this political energy, or is the campaign for disclosure so uniquely distinct that it must rely strictly on its own momentum?
It's a very good question. one of the real challenges of this advocacy movement is the fact that, of course, it's been embargoed for 64 years. The government has spent a fortune to undermine the issue, ridicule it, taint it, subvert it, disinfo, misinfo. They founded the National Enquirer and the Weekly World News to create disinformation about this issue and issues. And this is serious, full-fledged propaganda justified in their minds by the Cold War and the Soviet threat, and the fact that they didn't want the ET issue out while we were dealing with that Soviet threat. And as a result, they ghettoized the issue and gave people the cause to think that anybody that actually considered this important were silly, or fools, or kooks. Really nasty business. And as a result, no one, really there isn't any other activist movement out there that embraces this movement. They're afraid to touch it. Even though some of these movements are really controversial themselves, by and large, there isn't much, how would you say, brotherhood, sisterhood, not a lot of sitting down and breaking bread together. But this issue is kind of isolated. Now, that said, look, after, we'll just forget everything prior to the end of World War II, right? After World War II, the world had a tremendous opportunity to get their act together. I mean, they had finally seen how bad it could get. They'd seen World War twice. They'd seen nuclear bombs being dropped. They'd seen unbelievable carnage. It was an opportunity to get the act together. And what's happened is, in the 64 years since the end of World War II, we've had some really bad government, bad policies, stupidity, wasted opportunity, and on and on and on. And unfortunately, the population doubled in that time, from a little over 3 billion to now 7 billion people. And so without that population doubling, perhaps these bad policies wouldn't have been such a problem. But the two together, we're pushing the envelope on everything, on the environment, on sustainability, terrorism, nuclear proliferation. We are facing a horde of problems that could ultimately create considerable misery in this century for hundreds of millions of people. And so people are starting to figure it out. They're seeing the tsunamis coming. They're offshore our way, and they're starting to see them, and they're getting upset. And so they're starting to react, and that's helpful. It's energy for change. It's energy for reform. And so I'm glad to see it, but boy, would I wish I had a greater opportunity to talk to these larger groups. In other words, the masses out there who are concerned about the economy and about the war and about the environment, and explain to them that, guess what? The ET issue is a non-trivial component in all of this. That it has the ability to impact every major issue in the world today. And in fact, a lot of the problems we face today are a result of the institutional dysfunction that grew out of the need and the effort not only to defeat the Soviet Union, but also to embargo ET reality, creating vast secret complexes and propaganda machines that we're still dealing with. So it is unfortunate that the truth embargo still prevents this kind of coming together of this movement and the other movements out there. But that's the way it is, and we have to accept it. One day, I think you will see that, but it may not be until after disclosure takes place. But I'm glad to see people finally going into the streets. I'm glad to see people start to speak up. They need to speak up a lot more because, boy, there are serious issues that if they don't get addressed pretty soon, we will unfortunately have a very bad century ahead, and not one that I'm looking forward to, frankly. So we're running out of time to get our act together.
Powerfully spoken, Steve. And we do have some comments here. I just wanted to note that I believe you've agreed in a past interview, though I might have the incorrect recollection here, that Daniel Sheehan is so correct about the importance of the young generation, the new generations. And I believe you have referenced also the importance of the youth, that they are extremely receptive towards this issue. Do you think they'll be a critical factor in the success of a disclosure movement?
If the 20 to 30 crowd would jump into this big time, and I think the best way that's going to happen is through some celebrities. It would definitely change the equation. They are going to, in fact, have to deal with consequences of what happens over the next few years for the rest of their lives. So they have a hell of a lot at stake here. One of the next major exopolitical developments is going to be the coming out of the closet of famous people regarding ETs. A modest example of that just occurred in the last few months when a pretty well-known rock star from the 60s, 70s named Sammy Hagar published a book about his life and frankly stated he's been dealing with extraterrestrials since he was a kid, meaning he's a contactee. Well, believe me, there are plenty more. And I will not be surprised at all if we don't start seeing some celebrities, famous Hollywood people or entertainment people, sports stars, or political figures, possibly even well-known business leaders, who, for whatever reason, because they feel they need to, because they feel they can now, are going to come out publicly and state, look, I've been dealing with the Greys, I've been dealing with this contact issue or abduction for a long time, and I'm willing to talk about it. If some of these people are in the music industry particularly, more like Sammy Hagar, then it could really set the youth on fire. And boy, when that group, 20 to 30, gets cranking on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and MySpace, man, you talk about going viral. So that is certainly a distinct possibility. From PRG's point of view, it's difficult to get to them, to reach them. Certainly, if I were able to do a stint on the Daily Show. Of course, the Daily Show has had a few people on discussing this issue. So has Colbert Report, but not a political issue as the advocacy movement is addressing. But that could very well happen. But a show like that would definitely hit that audience. Others that would fall into that. But right now, the young people, certainly the teenagers and so forth, are not particularly involved in this movement. And while I don't think they have a problem with ETs, I don't think they know what's coming their way, and they're in the dark to some degree, though I think they'll handle it okay, but nevertheless, they're not being told. So, again, the truth embargo is it's just bad policy now. I mean, it serves no one, but maybe people that thrive on secrecy, that operate within national security structures, maybe certain business interests like the oil industry, but as a policy, it's no longer acceptable. It's no more acceptable now than the effort by the Catholic Church to somehow keep the world in the dark about the nature of the solar system because they felt that was better for their Catholic doctrine. I mean, that was ridiculous then. They'd since apologized for it, and to their credit, are already getting behind the disclosure movement and being active there because they don't want to make that mistake again. But nevertheless, the nations of the world still stand pat, though they are releasing documents by the thousands. The U.S. still stands pat, acting as if there is nothing going on here. And I tell you, it is not helping our credibility, and it is not helping the American image in the world to continue to act like the Catholic Church did back in the 1600s. It's just not going to work anymore.
Powerful statements there, Steve. Now also, I'm not actually reaching the precise question, but one of our room researchers, Ian, a very bright astronomer and also composer, is wondering if disclosure could perhaps prompt mass panic or chaos among the population. What would be your response to that, Steve?
No, not going to. That's just propaganda put out by the government going all the way back to the 60s in order to keep things under control, keep their mouth shut that worked inside government. Since 1951, starting with the movie, I think it was, what was it, Attack of the Flying Saucers. I've researched this. There's been about 305 movies with extraterrestrials in them in one shape, size, or 305 movies. Those movies have generated, in 2011 dollars, $35 billion in ticket sales. Right? And when you throw in the product sales, when you throw in the DVD sales, when you throw in TV shows about extraterrestrials and the ad revenues, we're talking $60 billion in revenues that have been generated by ET Entertainment. All right. The highest grossing movie in all of history at $2.8 billion is about blue extraterrestrials, and they're the good guys. 2 more are in the works, Avatar 2 and 3. They will probably also do $2-3 billion each. Disney just is about to open up a Avatar theme center in Disney World. So 100% of virtually everybody in the country knows what a UFO is. 100%. You're lucky if you can find 50% of people know who the vice president is. And that's about the same for extraterrestrial. You know extraterrestrial? Oh, yeah, ET, I know about that. Complete universal awareness in the industrialized nations, and a very high level of awareness in the second and third tier nations, right? Less industrialized. So this idea that it's going to become some huge shock is nonsense. Did we panic when 9/11 happened? Did we panic when World War II happened? Did we fall apart when we had the savings and loan collapse? How about the current economic collapse? Human beings have been through plenty. And so all this business about we're all going to go nuts is ridiculous. It's not going to happen. And so I encourage people not to buy into that propaganda because it's nothing more than that, propaganda.
Steve, thank you for that explanation. Appreciated. And also, I'd like to preface with this next question that your comments just now reflect the reality that ETs and UFOs are at least subliminally a major part of our culture. And pardon me. Excuse me. Steve, what would you say to people now who are so concerned with their own personal financial and job issues as to the immediacy of this petition, why it is so very important? And, of course, I'm just going to reference again what you were saying, that it already is part of our culture, even if subliminally so.
Well, it's not subliminally. It's part of our cultures everywhere. I mean, my Lord, the grays, the classic gray, everybody knows what that is, right?
True.
The image turns up in advertising all over the world, in Fortune 500 companies, right? No, it's totally in our culture. Thanks to Hollywood, and Hollywood guaranteed that. But here is a rather important point. Thanks to population increase, we are facing really big problems here, huge problems. And there's going to be a great deal of human pain if we don't deal with them.
Sure.
It's pretty obvious, I think, to anybody that's paying attention that the efforts of nations to deal with these problems have been pathetic. They're over their head, right? They're not particularly competent to begin with, but even if they were competent, they're over their head. We are a technological-based civilization now. There are people that live in small huts and in deep areas away from civilization, true, but the civilization as a whole is a technological civilization, and when it's facing major problems, it's got to have technological solutions. The idea that everybody is simply going to leave their home and go live in the woods and lead simple lives, right, and that way things will get better, of course, is ludicrous. Now, the population has doubled since 1945, 7 billion heading to 9 billion. Right? We can't even handle our garbage. We're polluting all the major oceans. We polluted every river in the world. We're polluting the sky. We're even polluting outer space. There's over 1 million pieces of space junk out there. We've got holes in the ozone. We've got melting tundra. We're in serious trouble. We need technological solutions. We need them big. And I don't mean inflating your tires and recycling your bottles and cans. That's a drop in the galaxy. Nothing. We need serious breakthroughs. Well, guess what? They may very well be right under our nose. Because while this truth embargo has been going on for 6.5 decades, the United States government, at minimum, has been spending billions of dollars researching, re-engineering, studying, whatever, ET technology from crashed vehicles. There's evidence for 70-plus crashes, though some of that evidence is very thin, but there have been multiple crashes, and I believe the U.S. has multiple vehicles. It's possible Russia has some, it's possible China has some, but the evidence seems to point that the U.S. has done most of the research. Well, The evidence is strong that we already have anti-gravitic craft, but it ain't available to the general public to deal with the problems they're facing. And we're pretty sure that those saucers don't fly on oil, gas, coal, or ethanol, right? They are very likely using an energy system that is a technological breakthrough of extraordinary implications. And whatever progress the government has made studying that technology, I would suggest that if the full spectrum of human intellectual resources were brought together to deal and study it, we might be able to take it to the level of usefulness, if they already haven't done so in their secret laboratories underground, scattered around the United States. And so here's where we're at. There may very well be an energy physics that could be available almost immediately, should the truth embargo end, that would eliminate carbon-based fuel pollution, which is killing millions of people here right now, and it's only going to get worse, and perhaps drop the price of electrons by 90-95% or more. And a major drop in energy cost would have more impact on the world's problems than any other single variable. So, low, right? You're facing. I mean, let's take an example. If the cost of energy were dropped 90%, do you have any idea how many trillions of dollars would be freed up globally to spend on other things?
Development of infrastructure, yes.
Right, and that's going to drive the economies. In other words, we're currently living in a world where the richest companies in the world basically make and sell oil. It's the rivers, the oceans, and the sky, and kills millions of people. It's polluting the groundwater. That stuff has got so many chemicals in it, you can spend your whole life studying it, right, as a chemist. And these companies are the richest in the world. That is the current paradigm. Does anybody think that's going to last much longer? Do they really think that we're going to continue down that road? That we're going to continue to burn shale oil and frack natural gas and pollute the groundwater, pollute the oceans for not just 7 billion, but 9 billion people? And these companies are going to be worth trillions of dollars, and their boards of directors and owners are going to make multi-billion-dollar bonuses? That's the paradigm you want? Or could we have a paradigm in which energy could drop 95%? Oil wouldn't even be used for anything except making plastic, and they shouldn't even do that. And we could clean up the ocean, clean up the seas, and generate massive new businesses because cheap energy means more business. That's the paradigm we could have, and the only reason why we don't have that paradigm is because a truth embargo that's now 64 years old still can't quite be ended because it kind of has a life of its own, or certain people within government find it just a little too hard to do. That's the solution. So that's what's being posed. And so the people are out there marching on Washington, on Wall Street. They're marching in Greece. They're marching in Europe. That know what's coming. They just smell the suffering that's heading their way. Thanks to the truth embargo, they don't even know that maybe the answers to these questions are sitting in underground facilities in America right now. The truth embargo is its own worst enemy. It prevents people from knowing that it has an answer, because it's like the tumor. It's like the tumor you got in your gut. You don't even know it's there. Since you don't know it's there, you don't treat it. And by the time you find out about it, it's too late. And so the truth embargo is, in fact, the number one barrier to human civilization's progress in this century. The number one barrier. And how many people have you heard say that on ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox, right, or the networks in the last few years? How many times have you heard that? Virtually never. So we have a serious problem. But, lo and behold, there's a petition on the White House website where people can sign it and say, hey, I want to know what's going on. I want the truth. I want it now. And the only reason that there isn't a million signatures up there is not enough people know the link even exists. But Paradigm Research, look, this movement doesn't have any money. It doesn't have the money to buy billboards in New York and LA. It can't buy ad time on NBC, right? It can't put out expensive press releases all over the world. We don't have that kind of money. And the truth embargo made damn sure we didn't. But we the most powerful networking technology the world has ever seen, the Internet, Facebook, which has 750 million members, MySpace, Twitter, bulletin boards, email lists, and, of course, millions of websites that could have the link to the petition on them. We have all of that, and by and large, it's all paid for. It doesn't cost anything. We already got it. We're already paying for it. All you have to do is use it, right? And so the greatest issue of all time is sitting there in the palm of our hand, and all we have to do is just simply put it and lift it and put it into our computer and spread the word, and we could have this issue resolved in no time. But it's up to the people. They either act or they remain in the dark.
Beautifully said, Steve. Now, we're having a bit of a discussion here in the chat room, the network chat work here on Pal Talk, as to whether or not all the media have been notified of this petition. Now, you just recently were interviewed by the Wall Street Journal, correct, Steve? I heard that correctly. And
I think I'm also waiting on the article to come out, yeah.
Excellent. And also, you've appeared on Coast to Coast AM several times, correct, on this petition, at least once, not twice.
Once with respect to the petition. It was a very quick couple minutes, and I did mention it, and I think they put a link up on the website, but we need a lot more exposure than that.
And I suggest to our other, and I'm sure Joe Montaldo always is extremely happy to interview you. Your interviews, your discussions always generate tremendous audience response and listener rate. I'm sure he would love to interview you as well in the other shows here on UPRN, and you'd be surprised at how tremendous the audiences can be, particularly for Joe's program on Wednesday evenings. Now, let's see here. I noticed rather a poignant reference at your PRG website to the recent passings of Bud Hopkins and astronaut and Dr. Brian O'Leary. What wonderful men.
Look, we're losing people all the time. I mean, particularly witnesses. Of course, Brian O'Leary was a witness, in a sense. I mean, he spoke very strongly to this. Of course, Bud Hopkins, one of the great researchers, a legend. But we're going to lose more. I mean, the truth embargo is 64 years old. And so I suppose there are a few people in government think we'll just wait them out. They'll all die off, and then we'll be able to just keep this going. Of course, that's not what's going to happen. For me, it's sad because, disclosure will be the most profound event in human history, and a lot of, Bud had spent 40 years of his life on this. Brian certainly had put years into it. So it's sad when anyone passes before they could see this happen, right? So they could see the fruits of their efforts and see the results. But that's the way it is. A lot of people fought for civil rights, never lived to see the Civil Rights Act pass, and many other examples like that. But they did great things, and they will be remembered well. I think Bud's role in history is going to be solid, and Brian O'Leary, I think, will be remembered probably more for his forthrightness on this issue than maybe in his massacre. We still have, though, 2 astronauts that are prepared, that are willing to step up to this issue living, and that's Edgar Mitchell and Story. And as regard Edgar Mitchell, let me just happen to mention this. This is something that's really sticking in my craw. Edgar has been talking about the matter-of-fact reality of the ET since 1997 when he spoke at the Shoreham Hotel. He was about 65, I think, at the time. And, as one of the 12 men who walked to the moon with a PhD in MIT, obviously he carries a lot of gravitas, a lot of weight, and so he's definitely helped advance this issue. Now, NASA is a victim of the truth embargo. It is never allowed to be the true space program we would want, and that was built right into the Space Act that created in 1958.
Yes.
So Edgar speaking out on this issue, and of course being a NASA astronaut, has been an irritant to them. And some numbskull in NASA decided that maybe they might want to try to embarrass Edgar. Maybe slap him across the face a little bit, let him know that they don't like the fact that he's speaking truth to power. And so not that long ago, they actually filed a lawsuit against him because he was trying to sell a camera that was from the lunar module that he took back with him on eBay, right? Because Edgar's 80, done recently. There's been a lot of expenses. He probably needs some cash. Many artifacts were taken by astronauts. It was done. It was accepted. The lunar module was set to crash back into the moon, and so had the camera been left, it would have simply been destroyed. They have actually filed a lawsuit, and it's publicized, and it's actually set for a court date, I think, in October of 2012, right? Which means that they can continue to play this up, and it's an absolute disgrace. It's despicable that a man of this integrity and this accomplishment should be embarrassed by NASA this way. And I'll tell you, if I could stand in front of the NASA administrator right now, I would blister his backside with my feelings about this. This used to be very common. They destroyed Bill McDonald because he, as a top scientist, researched this issue and was pressing it forward in the scientific community. This is the dark side of the truth embargo, the arrogance of power, the arrogance of liars and secret keepers who believe from their prestige and a prestigious place that they can just spit on other people and citizens for simply telling the truth. Admittedly, I prefer to the stake or shot through the head like the Nazis. The point is that it still lingers. And after disclosure comes out and the truth comes out, I hope to God the American people say to their government, never again will we put up with this kind of crap from you, this kind of grotesque misrepresentation of reality, lies of this magnitude done in our best interest because we can't handle the truth. Never again will we tolerate this. And anybody in government, whether it be in an agency like NASA or the CIA or the executive branch or the Congress that does this, you're fired. You're done. You're finished. And if it's criminal, you go to jail. We do not want to be governed this way. And so now we have a little vestige of that, a little slap across the face of a great man who, frankly, nobody in NASA can carry his bags.
Indeed.
They're going to sue him over a camera he brought back from the moon 40 years ago. Anybody wants to go to the NASA website and express their opinion about that, feel free to do so. Just had to get that off my chest, Patrice. Sorry. It's been bugging me for about a year now.
No, your comments to me sound warranted and eloquent as always. And I've had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Edgar Mitchell just briefly. From what I've read of him and his writings, what a brilliant mind. And he did put his life on the line many times for our country as an astronaut. I think your comments are extremely warranted. Mm-hmm.
I mean, NASA is a victim of this embargo. I mean, the Space Act makes it very clear that nothing involving national security can be dealt with by NASA. It has to go to the Department of Defense. NASA could have found an entire civilization of ETs on the moon, bases and everything. They couldn't have said anything. They couldn't have shown a single picture. It's national security. I understand that. That was done in 1958 in the early days. It never had a chance to be the full space agency. So it is a victim. Okay? Fine. But be a victim. Keep your mouth shut. And sure as hell, don't try to embarrass an American hero like Edgar Mitchell. All right? Because believe me, disclosure is coming. And everything that you do, you're going to have to eat every single word and every action. And that goes for the Harvard, University and Susan Clancy and their hypnopompic, sleep paralysis nonsense to try to undermine Mac's work and every other failure of the American colleges and universities. They're going to have to eat every one of their arrogant, ridiculous postures, their cowardice, their failure to even address this issue. They're going to have to eat it all. And so at least until then, keep your mouth shut unless you have something significant to say about this issue, and don't try to screw around with the people in the field. And that goes for Seth Shostak and the rest of the idiot debunkers who have plagued us like insects for the last 40 years. I can assure you that I don't get this worked up very often, but believe me, there are plenty of people in this field that feel exactly as I do, and try not to get upset because we don't want to come across as being angry young men and women. But trust me, the things that I'm talking about will be historically seen as outrageously egregious, and nobody that has played that game is going to come off well. The truth tellers will come out just fine. But in the meantime, we have to fight the good fight and oppose this truth embargo and end it and try to deal with as much dignity as possible, even though the government almost seems incapable of acting with dignity anymore, and it's really kind of sad, frankly. Sorry about that.
No, Harley.
The rest of this interview.
Highly agree with you. I heartily agree with you, Steve. And to everyone, we should be back in about 8 minutes' time. And I'm looking forward to continuing this interview. I have several questions, and work's very exciting, very timely, very important. We'll be back in 8 minutes. Bye-bye. We'll be right back.
Okay.
Hey, hi there. Got your attention? I'm Gia Scott, and I was curious what you were doing from 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time on Tuesdays. See, I host this really interesting little radio program.
Join me every week for the Rob Simone Talk Show here on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
To UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome back to A Global Focus with guest Stephen Bassett, leading disclosure advocate, executive director of the Paradigm Research Group and the Political Action Committee, XPAC, and the executive producer of the X Conference. Welcome back, everyone, to our interview with Steve Bassett. And relevant websites for our audience this evening would be www.disclosurepetition.info and www.paradigmresearchgroup.org, as well as of key importance there to the disclosure petition link itself at http://wh.gov/GKC. Wonderful initiative. Certainly wishing you the very. I've signed it myself, and I and so many others hope that it will be successful. Now, Steve, I notice that there's a second paragraph to your petition, which references the hundreds of individuals from the government agencies and military who have provided testimony as to the ET presence scenario. And, Steve, just here as an aside, can you think of, in addition to Dr. Edgar Mitchell, can you think of other figures who had a tremendous impact on you as far as the great credibility of their testimony and just the powerful nature of their accounts?
Yeah, I'll answer that. But first, that link is case sensitive, and so the KC is uppercase. The rest is lowercase. Look, the people that have in this field that I've been affected with, John Mack had a great impact on me. I was amazed that a man of his stature took on the contact issue, studied it. I knew the risks he was taking. Gordon Cooper, obviously I was very impressed with the fact that Gordon Cooper, the greatest jet pilot that ever was, came out matter-of-factly and said, look, it's real, and I've seen craft, and so forth and so forth. Edgar Mitchell, Robert Salas, one of the best witnesses out there, and he's dealing with one of the significant exopolitical aspects of this, which is the agenda of these ETs, and of course it comes into play because his testimony regards the Malmstrom Air Force Base case where they tampered with the nuclear missiles, which they've done a number of times, and I think it's a fair question, why are they tampering with our nuclear missiles? or even more importantly, why do they just tamper with them and not turn them off, blow them up, melt them down? They tamper with them, we turn them back on. What's going on there? I mean, and his testimony is backed up by other witnesses. And of course, Robert Hastings wrote a key book called UFOs and Nukes, where he brings that testimony together. It's still going on, according to Hastings. All these kinds of witnesses are incredibly powerful. John Callahan, his testimony about the unbelievable Japan airline case. I mean, that transport over Alaska, unbelievable case. These kind of people, theoretically, there should be full-page articles in the New York Times about them, extensive accounts of their stories and what have you. At times, it's part of the truth embargo. It has been forever. Same thing with the Washington Post, LA Times, probably the Chicago Tribune. But there are so many witnesses. One of the ones I sort of really liked was Corrado Balducci. I mean, he was such a character. This very old retired fellow priest living in a small place there in Rome, friend of the Pope, former head exorcist of the Catholic Church, and he's out there around the turn of the century turn of the millennium, talking about the fact that the issue is not a problem for the Catholic Church, that the concepts have been addressed by some key players in the church, like Father Pio, a saint, and what have you. And of course, he was ridiculed and criticized as being an old guy, retired, who had no real contacts with the Vatican, and it was all silly. And then he passed away a couple of years ago, and not long after the time he passed away, the head astronomer, Gabriel Funes, gave an interview to L'Osservatore Romano, and basically he said exactly everything that Balducci said, and of course he was the head astronomer, young man, obviously a major figure a significant official in the Catholic Church, thus completely putting a lie to all the debunkers and critics that criticize Corrado, which happens all the time. I mean, one of the worst aspects of the last 64 years has been the willingness of individuals to come forward, like Phil Klass, and despicably try to interfere with this issue, undermine it, debunk it. Either whether they're paid by the government or not doesn't matter. It's just outrageous, and they're just awful people. I mean, they are nothing but a block to civilization. They serve no good purpose. Healthy, proper skepticism is wonderful and important, but that's not what this issue has had. It's had deliberate interference by people with no moral character whatsoever who decided that they're going to push you, oftentimes for money, paid well, and it's really sad. And of course, they attack Corrado Balducci, and like just about everything else they talk about, they're completely wrong. So I like Corrado a lot. I think it's great, and I love what he did. There's so many more witnesses. You can if you Google UFO witness, that's a good start. You can find lots of testimony from members of the Air Force, Army, Navy, British military services, and so forth. And of course, and one way to really get a taste of this is to see one of the quote directories. Paradigm Research Group has got a very good one. So at paradigmresearchgroup.org, find the quote archive, and you can see quotes from witnesses and fairly well-known people going back some time. And, frankly, any journalist that would read that quote section from beginning to end that didn't immediately go to their editor and say, my God, let's start doing some serious stories here. He's just really not a journalist as far as I'm concerned, except, of course, there's a truth embargo, and it's in the 64th year, and they sort of know that they think, whatever they feel about it. They really can't cover it except within certain limits. They certainly can't get too intense about it. Again, that's not the democracy. That's not the country we want. That's not the country we set out to create. We're losing our republic bit by bit, piece by piece, and a lot of it is simply because good people are simply going along with the dissemination, the disassembling of the country. I don't think they're evil people. They're just don't have what it takes or what you need to be able to stand up and say no. So when journalists stand down, when members of Congress stand down, when the colleges and universities stand down, when, scientists, research scientists that have the intellect to understand this stand down, not much is going to happen, which is where the advocacy comes in. Activists and advocacy movements generally come into play when the rest of the institutions stand down. And that's one of the reasons they're so tough, because at that point you are kind of up against all of the rest of the institutions in the society who either will not cooperate or because they've taken the wrong position are trying to fight to protect their integrity. They don't want to be proven wrong. So that's what makes advocacy activism very difficult. If large portions of society, particularly institutions, would get behind you, it wouldn't be hard at all. But that's not the way it works. And so the witnesses, to me, are more important than the sightings, more important than the radar reports, more important than the photographs, because they not only represent key evidence, first-hand in many cases, strong second-hand evidence in other cases, but they are also symbolic of the truth process itself and confirmation that there's still people that will stand up to power and tell the truth. So they are leaders in that sense. They are emblematic of what's best in democracy. The ability to stand up and tell the truth. We have created a country where, by and large, you can tell the truth and not be shot in the head. But if we don't get our act together, we could have that one day. But that's one of the great gifts of the Founding Fathers. It's one of the great gifts of the American experiment. You can stand up and tell the truth and not be shot in the head. So, do it. Because if you don't, eventually you'll end up with a country where you do get shot in the head. I mean, it's real simple. Now, that's just kind of extreme, and I'm not trying to get silly here, but let's just say the American people vote in extraordinarily low quantities. Right? They don't take advantage of the voting booth. They're not taking advantage of the political action committees and lobbyists that could represent them if they would pool their money. They're not taking advantage of the petition process, the referendum process. They tend to only go in the street when their pocketbook is hit. So not always. We are committing the same mistake that the Roman people committed as they became less and less engaged, more lethargic, and less willing to address the concerns of their society until, of course, it was gone. I mean, like turned into dust, gone. And this is not good. And I sure hope that we turn it around. I mean, the Internet may be our salvation because, Lord knows, the Internet makes it about as easy to be an activist, about as easy to engage society as anything ever. And so if we don't take advantage of the Internet and use it for political and social change, then I can't imagine what we would do taking advantage of in the future. So this is kind of the ultimate test of a modern society. Other nations are doing it. They're using the social networks to ferment resistance and governmental change. America still has to show that it's willing to do the same. This issue is a wonderful way to demonstrate and to move forward like that because it is a global, universal, transcendent, nonpartisan issue. It's not Democrat, Republican. It's not Catholic or Protestant. It's not one race or another race. It is transcendent. It is global. It is a special engagement, and so it's about as straightforward. Let me put it this way: if you want to get involved in something, but you're worried about, quote, being in a partisan position with respect to, quote, other people, what have you. I mean, this is the one because it's nonpartisan. It's above everything in a sense. It is how we as a species respond to a transition underway and how we respond to the need to make truth the front and priority component of governance. Not because it would serve a Democratic, Republican agenda or any other agenda, but because it's virtually natural law, higher law. It is reality itself. So So I'm hoping that people will eventually get in this in a big way. I think they will, though it may not be till after disclosure. But let me be clear. Massive civilian participation in this issue is probably even more important post-disclosure than it is pre-disclosure, though we'd love to have it, right? So it's not like, gee, if we get disclosure, then okay, let's all sit down. Oh, no. Then we got problem. And I have a feeling that people will, because they're going to be highly motivated, I think, by the events that will take place.
And by the revelations. And, Steve, you're such a strong field advocate, eloquent field advocate, and you've always been as well, a very strong proponent of the social contract. You're an eloquent advocate for your causes. Back to witnesses of the ET presence, I was noting on your Facebook page here, or not yours, or perhaps a friend's Facebook page, your comment as well, as to the article on Clark McClellan, which appeared in Veterans Today, the Military and Foreign Affairs Journal. Interesting comment. Of course, Clark McClellan, an astronaut with excellent service as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's a witness. He was a shuttle specialist. He's, I think, up in his possibly late 70s. Guy's had a pretty rough time. He has spoken out about this, and definitely didn't help his wife any. But he has a website. He's been trying to get his information out. But this Veterans Today publication on the interesting. They have a number of columnists, and they're putting some interesting material up there. I don't know the full history of Veterans Today, but I assume that it's generally about veterans and for veterans. But they've been running some strong articles related to the UFO ET issue, and that to me is notable. That's good.
I agree with you. You know what? No, I won't venture forth into this. Oh, I will. What the heck? Steve, what I find fascinating, too, as well about Facebook are the interesting discussions on the Tall Whites. There's an excellent Tall Whites group. It's actually, interesting discussions do occur on Facebook, I must say. And it's a wonderful tool for advocacy. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's a huge dialogue going on Facebook about the UFO ET phenomenon. There are hundreds of groups, right? And every one of them has its own wall. I mean, you've got people with their walls. So, believe me, the UFO ET issue is thriving on Facebook, without question.
And, Steve, I think a mutual friend of ours, Ed Komarick, has an excellent news page on Facebook as well as an exopolitics blog. He's doing outstanding work, not only on himself doing research on the Tall Whites. He also has an additional new research focus, that being, I believe the individual's name is Borden, B-O-R-D, and it might be a pseudonym, I'm not sure, and the Anunnaki. So it's intriguing developments there. And I hope I'm accurate in those comments.
There's always new media threads turning up. Ed Komarick has been an activist for a long time, and he's a pretty smart guy. He's always got good stuff. There's a new blog that just came out recently by a PhD candidate named Robbie Graham out of the UK called Silver Screen Saucers. It's a really important blog. This guy is doing his PhD thesis on the relationship between Hollywood and the UFO ET issue, believe it or not. And so Silver Screen Saucers is really covering the whole Hollywood connection in a sophisticated way. That's important. Of course, Billy Cox has written more articles as a working reporter than any other person in the country, and he's still got his blog Void, putting up stuff constantly. Those are archived on my website and, of course, at the Sarasota Herald Tribune. Of course, Steve Spiegel is now publishing regularly on Huffington Post, as is Alejandro Rojas. These are increasingly mainstream writers that are writing on this that are journalists. I mean, they're not just amateurs. Now, in addition to that, you have the whole what I call direct media. Direct media because the writing goes directly from the author right to the reader without an editor or fact checker in between. And the best examples of direct media, of course, the Examiner, the Internet Examiner, and and American Chronicle. And they're generating huge numbers of articles about the ET phenomenon. And I have those archived on my website, too, hundreds of them, and I have a bunch to put up. I've got several hundred I've got to load up there. Now, this is a little different. I mean, this is citizen journalism. It's direct. There's no editor. There's no fact checker. There's some wild, crazy stuff there. Whereas when you're talking about, like, I think Huffington Post, you're getting a bit more. I don't know how to describe it. Let's just say it's a little safer ground, a little surer territory. But again, every month or so, a thread turns up. A new a line of media turns up dealing with this. So it's creeping. It's just creeping. Ultimately, the media will yield. The only question is whether the media is going to wait all the way until disclosure and then go, oh, I could have had a V8, and slap their forehead and go, oh, wow, there's ETs here. Boy, we better get on that story. Or whether the media is actually going to be getting involved now and help resolve this issue, which is their job, right, to cover the news and cover the big issues. And, of course, if they don't, then history will eviscerate them. I mean, they'll just say, what the hell happened to you guys? Right? Where were you? On the other hand, those that do step forward are going to be heroes. They might even win a few Pulitzer Prizes. So, again, the media's got to make up its mind, but it is creeping further and deeper into, right, the last bastions, of course, will be the papers of record that have been taken over by the elite. The Los Angeles Times, the Washington Post, the New York Times, perhaps the Chicago Tribune. They'll be the last bat. They'll hold out to the last dog dies, I mean, there'll be ETs walking around. The government will have acknowledged it. The Post and the Times will be going, I don't know. It may not be real. I probably should write an article about it. I mean, and people ought to let them know. I mean, there's a reason. It just isn't the internet is not the only reason that some of these papers are about a fourth the size that they used to be and cost 4 times as much. They're literally disappearing before our eyes because they lost their cojones. Right? I mean, they had one great big, deal with Watergate. They got rid of Nixon and said, well, that's the only serious investigative journalism we need to do for the next 100 years. Let's take a vacation. Right? And they've even punished journalists that have tried to take on the government. So, there's a reason these papers are literally disappearing. Now, they'll end up on the internet and it'll all shake out. But overall, let me tell you, from 1947 forward, right, the top papers in this country have disgraced themselves over and over again, which is what we're rating for the media right now, is particularly the newspapers, is somewhere in, 17, 18%, generally approve or quite approve. That's based on a number of research groups, including Pew Research. They've earned that distrust by failing to do good journalism, by standing down, by copping out, by caving in, right? By becoming so, they got paid, they started getting paid pretty well. Plus, TV journalists, my God, they're making $1 million a year. They got beach homes, and they're driving Mercedes-Benz, and the last thing they want to do is upset anybody. So, I mean, it's not good. But nevertheless, the issue continues to creep deeper and deeper into it, and ultimately, they will switch sides. Ultimately, they will be going, ETs, they're here, we're on it, get your news here, right? And it'll be all over MSNBC and all the damn channels, and they'll act like they knew all about it from the beginning and whatever, and we'll move forward. But those that are doing the work now, the Lee Spiegels, the Billy Coxes, these are the ones that are, really being the great journalists. They're doing true journalism at a time when we need it badly, and I hope rewarded for that.
Yes, and despite the apparently ongoing impact of the Robertson panel of 53 to try to stifle that information.
Well, that was just an indicator. I mean, that was just a panel we learned about. The 52 events in Washington, D.C. in July scared the hell out of the government. And a whole bunch of stuff was going on inside the military intelligence complex. And it was all basically about, my God, how are we going to contain this issue? Right? these ETs are capable of just flying over Washington when they want to, what the hell are we going to do? And the decision was made, well, we can't do anything about the ETs, but let's see if we can completely somehow contain this issue and prevent the public from really getting, putting pressure on us or getting, pressure, whatever. Just keep it contained. That was the decision they made. It's irritating, and yet, if you look at the nuclear situation at the time, if you look at the Cold War, which is a stupid thing, too. I mean, talk about dumb. I mean, sometimes it's almost embarrassing to be human. You can appreciate why they realized they had to contain it, because by 1958 they knew that given the right circumstances, the Soviet Union would obliterate the United States, and also that we were more than capable of obliterating them. I mean, after all, the U.S. is the only nation that's ever dropped atomic bombs on human beings. So anybody who's going to think that we wouldn't have obliterated the Soviet Union is a naive. And so they realized what the situation, and so they made the decision that, okay, we're going to conduct an absolutely extraordinary program in which we are going to literally convince or prevent an acknowledgement of an extraordinary truth that is imminent all over the world. Somehow, we're going to mesmerize millions and billions of people enough so that they will stay out of it. They will not press us too hard. They'll stand down. Man, what a task that they took on. And the amazing thing, and one of the most scary things, if not the scariest thing, is that they succeeded. So, we need to learn from that and move on after disclosure.
Well, you do definitely pose strong elements there in your argument, Steve. And you're right, the Cold War definitely had its major concerns as well. In this new era, as we're facing this political and financial economic situation of chaos, not chaos, but let's say great uncertainty or definite uncertainty, new developments can occur. Hopefully disclosure will be one of them. But also even in the aspect of the way ufology is perceived, even in the corporate world or in the promotional, in the PR world. For example, now you're going to be speaking at the Pythagoras Conference in December. I've never seen a better, well, no, your X-Conference was the best organized and presented. But with this Pythagoras, I'm seeing very much a PR element to it. And so people realize that a particular type field can generate that interest across the spectrum.
The Pythagoras Conference, named after a famous Greek mathematician, has taken an interesting approach. They're trying to operate a public relations matrix around this conference that would be comparable to any big-time mainstream conference. Right, and they've got very high-level, complex websites and so forth. And I hope it goes well. I mean, I know this is costing money to promote and advertise at that level. But it is notable for another reason. That is that this is Louisville, Kentucky. I mean, we're talking about a pretty conservative, built area in the United States. Of course, this issue is going to work its way into every part of the country, but generally there isn't much activity that happens in these areas. I did a conference in Kansas recently. That wasn't something that happens very often. So now
Midwest Conference, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Local Midwest Conference.
It wasn't Midwest. It was the oh goodness, the name is suddenly. It was the Reykjavik. The Reykjavik Conference in Lawrence, Kansas. This is Louisville. It's the second week of December, week before Christmas, which is okay. I have links up on my website. If you want to sign up for it, go through my links at ParadigmResearchGroup.org because there's a revenue sharing. The way it's set up, it's a sophisticated revenue sharing, and that will help. put some resources into Paradigm Research Group. So use the links at paradigmresearchgroup.org if you're going to sign up for Pythagoras. But I'll be there December 16, 17, 18, and it could be pretty cool. So I look forward to seeing some of your listeners there.
Excellent. Now, Steve, I'm going to hear about 10 minutes because I'd like to hear you discuss some of your ongoing future initiatives. Any conferences planned?
Well, PRG, right now, of course, we're focusing on the disclosure petition, driving that as hard as possible. I would like to have the next conference 2012, but it's going to take some serious funding. The first XXX conferences all lost money, and the last one lost a lot, $36,000, and that still has to be repaid. I cannot really produce another conference until that is covered. But that's, 6 conferences, 220 presentations, 180 speakers, 6 press conferences at the National Press Club, hundreds of hours of videotape material that's out, some in documentaries. I mean, they end up with only $36,000 in debt, net is not much for all that took place, but nevertheless, it's got to be paid. So that's kind of on hold. I have been spending a lot of time in Los Angeles for the last year, and I'm currently here now trying to network with people in the entertainment industry, film, television, radio, actors, producers, directors, and making some progress. I mean, there's a good network building up here. They tend to be younger, under 40, so not everyone. So that may lead to something. Again, I'm trying to bring many of these professionals in together with researchers and activists so they can learn some direct information about this. Hollywood makes a fortune off this issue, a fortune. And so learning more about it is good business. So we'll see how that goes. It's possible we may get some more higher level, better known or well-known members of Hollywood engaged here. So I've been working on that. That's going on. And ultimately, I'm hoping to do a documentary, and there is something happening there, but it's hard to say where that's going to go. But I would like to get a documentary done. And this is kind of where PRG is right now. And obviously, if any major funding turns up, well, there's a whole number of things that PRG could do. But until then, we focus on what we can do.
I hope I'm not speaking out of place here, but I'd love to see you do a program, a documentary, in conjunction with Paul Davids, and I'm embarrassed here. Is it Paul Kimball as well? The 2 great producers.
Well, there are many people that have done films already. I know most of them, who knows? We'll see. But I've got a plan I'm following. I've got a pretty good proposal together and all that.
And you're one effective advocate for this movement. By the way, kind of on a fun note here, how did that Disclosure concert go? Now, there's a battle of the bands for the Disclosure song. Tell me about this.
Well, I don't know if the battle of the band, but this is kind of a cool thing. There is an annual 3D film festival, right, that takes place in L.A., and the people behind it are the Dream Factory. And the head of the Dream Factory is a big fan of the Disclosure Project, which was Stephen Greer's efforts, right? And so this year, he included as part of the 3-day festival a Disclosure concert, a 3D concert, which means that they had a big screen up there that was projecting all kinds of cool videos in 3D that you could watch. And meanwhile, there's a band on the stage. Stephen Greer spoke for a bit, and it was held right in the heart of Hollywood and Vine, at the Avalon Hollywood. There was not a huge number of people there, but still, it was fun, and it was promoted. And so, in a sense, it was perhaps the first Disclosure concert that has taken place in the U.S., kind of a milestone. If you don't include like some of the the music at the Roswell Film Festival, where there's some bands that are kind of into that and it's sort of connected, there have been a couple of attempts to hold a major concert on this subject, focusing on the ET disclosure issues. One of them was called Signal to the Stars, and it was a multi-million-dollar concept that would have been along the lines of Live Aid, and so would have been on multiple venues, multiple continents. But it was tabled when the economic fiasco really got going toward the end of 2008. A concert, a major concert, because, there's a lot of people in music that are into this subject, right? The band Muse wrote a song called Exopolitics. Katy Perry just wrote a song called Extraterrestrial. There are a number of, Sammy Hagar basically says that he's been in contactees as a kid. Robbie Williams is into the issue. Peter Andre is into the issue. A couple of the Moody Blues are contactees, and so forth. So there's plenty of music people out there that are not unfamiliar with the subject at all. And a major concert would go a huge way to get the young people into this issue. But I sense that probably that is not doable pre-disclosure, that the truth embargo is still in place, and the ability to bring those kinds of monies together, to put on a concert in this genre, without probably any corporate sponsorship, unless you really were connected, which could happen. I mean, there are people out there that are pretty connected, because the corporations be going, well, we can run ads, but we don't want to make people think we actually think it's true. So, but post-disclosure, there will become, most definitely. Pre-disclosure, I'm not so sure. But I was there. It was fun. It was Hollywood and Vine, right near the Walk, the Walk of Fame. And it was a milestone, in a way. And my hats off to Chris Crescitelli and the Dream Factory for including that in their program.
Thanks for that information, Steve. And, I think you're correct there that the West Coast could really be a tremendous source of energy for this movement as well.
There's a lot going on in Hollywood. A lot. They just had another conference down in Orange County, which is close, Wake and Aware. And, of course, the Conscious Life Expo always has quite a few speakers. There's another one coming up, I think, in October. On 11/11/11, right?
Yes.
These are all listed on my website. I have at ParadigmResearchGroup.org, I've got the most comprehensive listing of any on the Internet. And also LA is increasingly, and of course they're cranking out one ET movie after another. So Hollywood could be a major factor here, the entertainment industry. If some of the big shots in this town decide they want to get behind the advocacy movement, they could really alter the picture pretty quickly. And I don't think there'd be much risk to them at this point, frankly. So we're trying to see if perhaps that could happen. And so LA may be where disclosure kind of comes from in a sense. I mean, the movement may finally go over the top based upon support out of LA, and then, of course, Washington would have to respond. So we'll see.
Yes, it would. And, let me see here. We have about 10 minutes left at this point. But, I think the disclosure petition is so important. 11, thank you. No, 9, pardon me. So much for my counting ability at this point, pardon me. Steve, with the disclosure petition, any advice to our audience as to how to really have it become a reality as far as acceptance by the administration?
Well, look, anyone can go to whitehouse.gov, go to the petitions. They're in the We the People. The link's right there on the top of the website. Millions of people go there every day. And register with the We the People. You have to provide your email, and I think an email address is the key. I think that's really all they want, but you can also provide your city and state and your zip code. They send you a
password. You then use that password to log in. And now you, and that means anybody in the world, frankly, can then sign any of those petitions. That's simple. That's it. And then your first name and last initial will be published with the petition and put them right up there. So it's that simple, and the question is how many people will learn about this and go and sign. And there are two petitions up there. One is the PRGs, and the other is it's not. Well, I think it's Craig C. is the fellow that put the petition up, and they're similar. And I signed them both without question. Both of them addressing the ET issue. The only two that address the ET issue are the 167, right? Mm-hmm. Sign them both. There's other issues up there that are notable, and sign those too. They innovate in this. Show the Washington that, yeah, good, this is a good idea. Let's do more of this, right? Give it, promote it more so more people know about it. Let's create a kind of a national referendum space where people can go and they can really put their signature behind key issues. It's set up pretty well. It's almost very difficult to put up multiple signatures or generate some automatic thing. That's not going to happen. So, by and large, it's a pretty accurate reflection of people's interest, and that's up there now. And the disclosure petition is one of the first that were signed. And how many people want disclosure? I mean, do you want the government to acknowledge this ET presence and then obviously learn more after that, or not? And if you do, this is the perfect opportunity to say so. Because as the numbers go up, as we get more signatures, we're going to get more media. And as we get more media, it's going to generate more signatures. You see how that goes. And it becomes a story pretty soon. It's already a story, but it can become a big story. But not only, but if we can generate some good numbers. So right now we're sitting around 8,500. That's nice, but why not 85,000? I mean, I was the coach the other night and mentioned it. Just 2 or 3 million people listen to that show, right? They can't go to whitehouse.gov and sign a petition. So I guess it's, a matter of whether people want to express themselves or not. And I understand some people don't want to give their email address to Washington, D.C. I can appreciate that. So they won't do it. Some people don't even want their first name and last initial up there. I can't criticize that. But I know there are plenty of people out there that are fine with that. So sign it. Spread the link. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, MySpace. If you're a webmaster, put a banner up. I got tons of banners at disclosurepetition.info. And comments, whatever. Just find a way to park that link, wh.gov/G, capital K, capital C. Find a way to spread that link and see if we can hit some kind of a critical mass, and all of a sudden it just goes like those YouTube videos. If that happens, we may have ourselves quite a phenomenon. So that's what's happening right now, and we'll see how it goes.
That would be an excellent development, Steve. And, I believe you've mentioned this before, Steve, and that also is the importance of our country remaining the leader in important world developments, and certainly the disclosure would be a major event. And our country should be at the forefront.
Well, I'm a little torn about that. The ET issue, the ETs aren't just here for the U.S., trust me. Engaging the whole human race. So, in a sense, it doesn't matter who discloses in a way. I mean, ultimately the world will know, and that's what's important. On the other hand, the United States is still a force for good in this world, potentially a force for good. Could be a force for a lot more good than it is. It started this truth embargo. It was the U.S. policy. It wasn't the UK's policy, and they came to the U.S. and said, go along with this. It was us, and we went to the UK and said, you go along with it. So we started it, and we will obviously have to take the criticism, or at least take the heat in terms of whether it was the right thing to do, whether it should have lasted as long as it did. And if we do not disclose first, we'll get all the downside and no upside. But beyond that, and here's where it gets interesting, right now, I consider other than the United States, the most likely country that may disclose is Communist China. Well, that's not true. I mean, that's fair. I should say the People's Republic of China. The Communist, that doesn't mean anything. People's Republic of China. And the nation that does go first on this is going to get a huge boost of their world. So the effect of People's Republic of China disclosing is going to be to elevate them even more rapidly to the status of a world superpower. And it's going to diminish the United States. That may not be in the best interest of the planet as a whole. But, of course, I'm an American, so I guess I'm biased, aren't I? But one could make a case that given the fact that we have 15,000 nuclear weapons still, something like that, and we spend more on defense, more on military spending than all the rest of the nations in the world combined, amazingly enough, that nothing, I think, would help to mitigate the concerns that other nations have about America's ultimate intentions than to get in the truth business in a big way. To tell the truth about this. No games. No nonsense. To bring the technology forward and move quickly to hopefully allow that technology to start addressing the human condition and spread a little goodwill. Of course, we can still do that even if another nation discloses, to be sure. But we have an opportunity to dramatically change the world's opinion about the U.S. and thus put the U.S. back in a position where it, I think, could be a positive force for change and leadership. But if we are preempted on this by another nation, Russia is another possibility, that opportunity is gone. And in the short run, it may not be in the best interest of the planet for it to go that way. Long term, it's going to matter, frankly. Long term, it will matter who discloses, because down the line, obviously, this stuff is all, things are going to change, and there's going to be so much new developments that who disclose first will be less of a major issue. But short term, huge, very huge. So I'd like to. I think it might be better. However, I'm not going to conduct PRG's activities in a way that favors the U.S. We're pushing on all fronts. The Exopolitics World Network is now up to, 27 countries. There's 2 or 3 more that will come on soon. And it's spreading. And that's a PRG project. So PRG is trying to act as global as possible. And if disclosure comes from out, well and good. Hopefully the U.S. will respond quickly and get on board and do the right thing.
Well said, Steve. And, I so heartily agree with you that our country is so capable. It would be wonderful if it would take the leadership role in the disclosure process. Steve, thank you so much for this informative discussion. I learned a great deal. I always do when I have the privilege of interviewing you. Now, any final comments? Again, thank you so much for stopping by.
Well, I appreciate being on. Obviously, your show is still called Global Focus, right?
It is.
Well, and I guess our subject tonight is about as global as it gets, right? When you say
absolutely. Yes.
So again, it's appropriate to be doing a show, and I know you'll be doing more shows along these lines. Again, the website is disclosurepetition.info. The petition is up at whitehouse.gov. The World Disclosure Day is still, receiving endorsements at worlddisclosureday.org, and all of it is linked from paradigmresearchgroup.org. My best to you and to Joe and so forth. You're doing some more shows when you can and getting the word out.
Thank you again, Steve, and thanks to the audience for listening. Great weekend, everyone. Thanks, everyone, for listening to A Global Focus with this evening's guest, Stephen Bassett. We appreciate your listening to the program. Great weekend.
Well, I saw the thing coming out.